My name is Malia Young. My grandfather, Thomas Edwards, is a special project manager for the J.C. Flowers Foundation Circle of Support. And I'd like to introduce our amazing moderator. She's an elementary public school counselor, co-founder of Beat Stage 3 Incorporated, a nonprofit organization dedicated to raising community awareness about cancer health and prevention, and host of her online talk show, Hers, Health Empowerment Reimagined. Talk today on Facebook Live. Now, I'll be introducing the one and only Miss Diane Nathaniel.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Malia. That was so beautiful. Welcome, everyone. We are excited to host this panel tonight of these phenomenal women who are coming to speak to you about the impact of COVID-19 on our community, on women and girls. We want to thank Mr. Thomas Edwards right up front from the J.C. Flowers Foundation for sponsoring this panel and putting it all together and seeing that women's voices need to be heard. We thank you, thank you, thank you. So we're going to get right into it. We have a group of amazing women who are doing such powerful things in our community. And I feel like the real warriors are the people in the trenches doing the work in the community with the boots on the ground. And rarely do we see them highlighted. Rarely do we see them getting awards, right? You know me, I'm thinking, well, if there's an award to be given, it should be for the folks working in the community who are, we're always writing grants for funding, right? We can't ever get funding. We can't really make the moves we need because everything is centered around money, not the people. So these folks are centered around the people, not the money. So I'm excited to have you hear from them. We're going to start off with around the screen. And thank you for joining us in advance. I'm sure you will be blessed. So I'm going to start with who's first on my camera, and that is Elizabeth Swoboda. Would you please introduce yourself to the people and tell them what you do?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Diane. Thank you to Circles of Support for having me on this panel. My name is Liz Swoboda. I work at the Vera Institute of Justice. I am a program director for our jail decarceration team at Vera, which means that I work with cities and counties and communities across the country that are trying to decarcerate. They're trying to reduce the number of people that are in their jails. And I'm participating in this panel in particular because in 2016, my team wrote a report called Overlooked: Women in Jails in an Era of Reform, where we found that the number of women in jails across the country was just skyrocketing. It had increased 14 times between 1970 and 2014, whereas the population of men had only grown by 5 times. There are a lot more men in jail, but the number of women is growing really dramatically. And so we are working to understand that and to try to change that. So I'm so honored to be here with the rest of my panelists.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Next, Ms. Shannon Shaw, would you please share with us?
Hi, everyone. Thank you to the J.C. Flowers Foundation and our moderator, panelists, and Thomas Edwards for creating this space to share. My name is Shannon Shaw. I am the Associate Director of Operations at the Center for Court Innovation for our project Neighbors in Action, which is home to SOS. It's a mouthful. However, SOS stands for Safer Streets. It's an anti-gun violence program. It uses a public health approach to ending gun violence in 2 main areas of Bedford-Stuyvesant and Crown Heights. In my role, I manage all of operations, all the fiscal operations, grant writing, communications. So I would say I'm a storyteller where I shift my story based on who is my stakeholder. So I speak with funders, community members, our own team, partners, vendors, all the such. And so my main job is to ensure that whenever my SOS team goes out into the community to somehow interrupt gun violence or respond to incidents of violence, I ensure they're equipped as best as possible by training them, ensuring they have the equipment, and just pouring into them as a nurturer that I am as a mom. I am also a mom I have a 4-year-old. I run a business, Pitter Packer, which is a gift and concierge. And last week I graduated with my MBA. So I've been a little busy, and I'm a mom and I'm a nurturer, and I don't rest much. And I'm here to share with you a little bit more about it as well. And I'm thankful to be here.
Go Shannon! Woo! We are cheering you on. Congratulations. It is always a milestone when women are succeeding in higher education and getting those degrees to make ourselves competitive in that market. So congrats to you and on being a mom. And as you heard, all the hats she's wearing, right? That's what women do. So I'm sure everybody here can attest to all of us being people who multitask very often. So next up is Wanda Velez.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for letting me share. My name is Wanda Velez. I am a social worker with St. Anne's Corner of Harm Reduction. I do the mental health and behavioral. I work with the vulnerable population, which is homelessness, substance use, domestic violence on the women and girls, but also with the transgender population. I advocate, I inform so that I can empower them. I do a lot of advocacy, which is I'm a fighter. So I just keep going and going and going until I get a response, to work with my clients.
Wanda didn't even say half the stuff she does, but we'll reveal it throughout this entire Zoom. I don't know what that little short intro was about, but I'm gonna let her have it for right now.
No, you know what? I felt like right now that's my intro, but I can get into other things. I'm pretty sure you're gonna point me in that direction.
Thank you, Wanda, for all you offer to our community in terms of helping out with coordination of services and all the information and awareness that you do for our women who are experiencing domestic violence abuse, for our girls and our women. So I'm excited to get to that part of the conversation too. We often think that domestic violence only applies to adult women, and we have tons of teenagers who are in that predicament. So I'm hoping we can give some resources, information, and assistance tonight. Next up, we have Ms. Barbara Barron. You're on mute, Barbara.
Okay, is it on mute now? Thank you, I'm sorry. My name is Barbara Barron, and thank you to the J.C. Flowers Foundation for this opportunity to speak this evening and for all the wonderful women that are on the panel. I work for CASES, Pretrial Services Department, out of the Bronx. We also are known as a supervised release program, and you can't see my face, sorry. I work for the Pretrial Services Department, and our main goal is to ensure that individuals have the opportunity to fight their cases. These are individuals who have had an arrest, and as a result of being arrested, they have gone through arraignment, gone through the screening, and selected to participate in the supervised release program, meaning they have the opportunity to be free in the community as opposed to being on Rikers Island trying to fight their cases. These are individuals who have not been accused. They have been accused but not convicted of anything. And our main goal is to supervise them in the community, connect them to needed services, and do all we can to prevent them from their case, going in a wrong direction, as well as to ensure that they make a point of going to their next court appointments. As Liz had mentioned, the numbers concerning women being arrested have increased a great deal. We're seeing more women coming through the supervised release program, as well as more domestic violence cases increasing. We have more women coming in with order of protections than we've had in quite some time. And I believe that's a direct correlation between COVID and just the frustrations and individuals just being bound in a sense to their homes and not having the opportunity to have resources that are needed, as well as outlets, something to do as opposed to being in the house pretty much getting on one another's nerves to the point of it escalating to wherein you have the justice system being involved in your family. And this is filtering down to the children. We see the numbers increasing in terms of foster care, as far as ACS removals. All across the board, this is being impacted. The young people going to school or not is another issue. But pretrial services, we try to meet the client where they are when they come to us and try to satisfy the needs that they need in order to have a successful supervision process leading to their upcoming court dates. And the goal is a positive outcome concerning their case and no remanding, to the criminal justice system. I'm also a mom. I'm a mother of 5 adult children and 1 grandchild. So I'm and I just got a new puppy, so pretty busy.
I was just getting ready to say, how she leave out all those kids she wrote in that bio? Take over 30, stop, okay?
Yes, that's right, thank you.
Welcome, thank you for sharing. And I wanna just say thank you for the case management. It is not enough to release folks back into the environment without any type of case management. You see so many mental health individuals, folks who know they need management with their medication, and they're just out here on their own with no one supervising them. So kudos to cases to seeing that it's not enough to just release a person. They're gone so many years, everything has changed. Like, how did they even begin? So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Next up is Ms. Charlene Ruiz.
Hello, everyone. How you doing today? My name is Charlene Ruiz, and I work for Exodus Transitional Community. Our mission statement is, with a firm belief in human resilience, Exodus Transitional Community delivers innovative programming tailored to adults and youth affected by the justice system, and advocates for a society in which and can achieve social, economic, and spiritual well-being. I am a service coordinator for the New York County Reentry Task Force. I've been working there for about a year now. I work in conjunction with the District Attorney's Office and parole. My role is to serve individuals, obviously, who have been impacted by the criminal justice system and that are being released from prison. They come through our program and we assist them in all the necessary resources, such as work development, education, social work, case management, substance abuse, domestic violence, mental health. We even assist them in health if they need medical attention, Medicaid, food stamps, we extend ourselves, we personally advocate in court, whether it's for child welfare, whether it's for the criminal, aspect of, someone at risk of being violated, having to go back up north and let's say they have to serve more time. We diligently dedicate ourselves to individually assist our participants, and taking the time to work with them closely and restoring hope and throughout our own experience. I myself was formerly incarcerated. I served 5 years in prison. Since March 19, 2019, I was released on that date. I've been home for 2 years now. I actually went through the program as a participant, and that was one of the biggest turning points of my life, because the services that were being provided to me not only assisted me in my transition, but also opened up doors for me. I started an internship at David Rockefeller Fund. I worked closely with Kendra Clark, who's the vice president for Exodus Transitional Community, and she took me under the wing. I have a few case managers, that supported me and they mentored me, and I guess they saw more in myself than I did, and before you knew it, once I completed my internship at David Rockefeller Fund, you know, I was actually looking for housing. I acquired my own apartment, you know, then finally, you know, COVID hit, the pandemic. The impact that COVID had on me actually was more positive than negative on myself, because it gave me time to self-reflect and isolate and focus on pursuing the things that I needed to succeed, you know, and such as I enrolled at Recoveries Are Us, and I pursued a KSAT, so I acquired that during the pandemic. And then I received a phone call from Exodus asking me to work in the youth department as a mentor. So I, you know, started working there about a year ago. After 3 months, you know, a couple people were like, I guess, closely observing me, and they actually realized, you know, that I had a lot of passion in me, and they felt that I would be fit to work for, you know, to be promoted to the New York County Ranching Task Force. And that's where I'm at now. So I was promoted, and this is where I'm at now. You know, I serve the underrepresented community, and I'm very passionate about it because I know what these types of services can do for one's life, you know, and the difference that it can make, you know. I'm just happy to be a human service specialist. I'm currently enrolled at BMCC in pursuit of my associate's degree. I'm actually about to graduate. I have one more semester. After that, I'm gonna join John Jay for the, I'm looking into social work and psychology. And eventually I would like to pursue a doctorate. As a Latina woman, I wanna set an example that is not where you came from, is who you have decided to become, you know, that defines us and me, especially as a Latina woman. I'm also a single mother. I have a 7-year-old daughter, and she and I are a work in progress together. We're both in therapy, and I'm just actually setting an example for her so that I could break that cycle, and she can you know, look up to me, and I'm leading by example so that she can succeed. And I'm throughout this whole journey, I'm just learning more and to better myself and my daughter, you know. But the best part of my day and the choice that I made is when a participant comes back and says, thank you for everything that you've done for me. You know, that serves my purpose.
Well, I guess we could all go home now, Charlene. Gee, thanks. I mean, good grief, girl. Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you.
First of all, thank you for being so vulnerable to share that, right? I wasn't going to share that part of anyone's story that's on this panel unless they wanted to. And so thank you for leading by example. Thank you for being an example, seeing that it's important to be a mentor and give back to help prevent our other kids from going in, right? We're gonna have to put you on some speaking engagements because I mean, the story is impactful. And you brought up a good point that COVID brought something good out of the pandemic for you. You were able to reset, you know, and have some things blossom. And so that is a wonderful way to have to talk about it, right? Because it most people have had such a negative impact, but there are some things that people can say if it wasn't for the fact that I had to stay in my house, that I had to literally couldn't go anywhere and had to create and look within for healing. I think you've managed to do that. So we thank you for your work, and I'm glad that our youth have you advocating for them.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So my first question of the evening, I guess Charlene kind of answered it, but I'm gonna start with Shannon actually. What was the impact, if any, on you and your community, COVID-19 that is, on you and your community, women or girls you want to highlight? So we've been talking about domestic violence, we've been talking about getting degrees, we've been talking about the increase of incarceration on women and women being unheard and not getting the promotions we deserve, but we're doing all the work. You know, is there anything you want to share that COVID was able, how it impacted you, your community around you, or any of the women and girls you know?
Thank you for that question. So Diane, in my work, we tackle, it's a hyper-masculine space where we address gun violence. Most of our staff are men. I'm one of the few on staff. But in the nonprofit space, and I think in spaces where we have healers and community healers, women are most of the people who are working in, like women who are in nonprofits. And most of the times when you're working in a nonprofit space, you are brought to that because of some sort of like connection that you've had, where you have a similar trauma, similar to how we hire violence interrupters who have somehow either perpetrated or impacted by violence. That's the same thing where we are either from that community. Like I'm off Bed-Stuy, I'm off Crown Heights, I'm an immigrant. I'm from Jamaica originally, but I transplant to Bed-Stuy and then Crown Heights, and more recently East New York. But I think it's during the pandemic, I saw my community hurting, where our original like you'd say, our original mission of anti-gun violence was not pushed aside. It was actually exacerbated. We had people who were having mental health issues. Those were even more exacerbated. But we also had to shift our focus to also a deficit in food. We changed all of our approach to be responding to people had food insecurities. It was a really hard time. People lost their jobs, especially women. The number I had, it was 5.1 million jobs were lost by women in the pandemic so far as of last month. And most of the jobs that were lost in the pandemic were women. And some of it is because their jobs couldn't, they weren't able to keep jobs because their employees couldn't keep them. But other than that, it was because they had other responsibility, they had certain needs they had to respond to, like caring for a family. For myself, my daughter started, working. She had to do school from home while I was working from home. And then I had to take care of a whole house, a whole family in the middle of a pandemic while trying to sustain myself. And because of the work that I do, it's really heart-wrenching. Like last year, we had a 1-year-old die from gun violence. And my team and I showed up on the scene in Bed-Stuy, and it was kind of like, okay, you have to like somehow desensitize yourself to these things. But it's really hard. When I showed up on the scene, there was still a stroller like my daughter's. And I looked and I was like, I cannot look, I cannot be. And I remember I was actually talking to my colleague today, and I was like, I remember last year where I think one of the reasons I was like, now I've like had to set up certain boundaries, but then I was like, I poured myself into a march along with my team in response to that. And I was like, because of my personal bringing as a woman into the space, a woman that wants to, I feel that nurture inside of me. I want to support everyone. But I think one of the things I had to really figure out in this pandemic was boundaries, where what time do I pick up the phone? What time do I put it down? Because there's not much, like if my child comes down here, you see her. Like in other spaces, you don't know I have a child, I just show up as a person. And so that's one of the things where I had to figure out my boundaries. And we've had people coming into our spaces where there's a lot of economic need right now. One of the offices that is under my umbrella is the Legal Hand Office in Crown Heights, where we offer legal resources and support for just any needs that you need for your day-to-day. And having our offices closed during that time, I know was a tremendous loss to the community, because people would be walking past. If I stop by the office to pick up mail or something, there's always someone banging on the door. I need SNAP, I need this, I'm being put out of my house. And those things are even more exacerbated because of women. And I pray, and I'm hoping at some point that we're gonna have more support, more legislation for women to actually be equipped with opportunities to secure more financial, secure futures for themselves and also for their families.
Shannon, thank you so much for sharing that. You hit on so much. I live in Bed-Stuy, down the street from, actually from that shooting when it occurred. It was absolutely insane. And so hats off to you because I could not show up, but I attend Cornerstone Baptist Church. And so all the churches got together and the preachers went out into the community as well to just kind of do some evangelism, some healing, some praying, and really to just support the community through that. That was very, very difficult. So hats off to SOS for going out there and you being brave enough as a mom to even put yourself in such a vulnerable and sensitive position, and always nurturing, right? We don't ever get time off from being a nurturer, whether you have kids or not. It's just this innate thing that women do. It's in our DNA. And so we never set those boundaries. In fact, I think we feel guilty about setting boundaries because we have a problem with saying no, right? It's really this thing that's expected of us, whether it's our children, our jobs, our external friends, or all these organizations that we belong to. We just have a hard time saying no. And I just want everyone to know that no is a sentence. It is a complete sentence, no period. Okay? So I need you to find that word in your spirit and start using it. And it will help center you so that you can extend yourself some grace the same way we keep extending grace to others. Okay? So next up, I'm going to ask the same question to Barbara. You're on mute, sis.
Okay, thank you. During the pandemic, I've seen a lot of changes, a lot of stress among the women that I work directly with, and I'm going to speak from their point of view because I don't have a lot of hands-on with the participants, especially being that we have been virtual for the last year. But the women that I personally supervise and work along with have been going through a lot. They're all single moms, raising children at home. Some children have special needs, as well as their children just being young and not having a lot of support in the home while they're still trying to maintain their jobs and help others who are being supervised by them. What I'm seeing is a lot of mental health concerns, a lot of depression among the women. Self-esteem has been diminishing. We've actually been doing some self-care building activities and just reminding them that they come first, that if they're not taking care of themselves, then they can't help the participants that they're responsible for. I've seen them really trying to balance this teaching their children, this remote teaching, as well as, doing their work. And this has been difficult because most of them didn't have the hands-on or the skills that the teachers may have had. And now they have to teach lessons that they have no familiarity with. And it's been really, really stressful. And then you're trying to, listen to your children while they're supposed to be, what I'm hearing when I'm supervising them is they're listening to the teacher instructing their children and asking them to do certain things by way of prompts. And they have to take time to try to do that as well as do their work. And it creates stress and causing them to really, kind of wonder, is it even worth me trying to work and take care of the family? Should I just give up my job? But of course they need their income, so they're not going to do that. But kudos to the teachers and the hard jobs that they have, because I think through this pandemic, we're beginning to see the value of individuals, but especially the value of women, the value of moms, and the value of the teachers that we entrust our children to when life was normal. And, we just sent them off to school and picked them up and not knowing what was really going on in between. But this pandemic just to be on the positive side, just as Charlene was earlier, this pandemic has also made individuals strong. Some women have had the opportunity to do some things that they never thought that they would be able to do. And the same for girls. Just as Charlene mentioned that she has gone through school during this time, we've had a couple of people on the job who have gone to school, who are getting their education through this pandemic, coming home and still doing their work, still doing, whatever lessons their children have and all of the household chores and everything else that goes along with that. But they still need and know the importance of getting their education so that they can provide more for their families, as well as create some good feelings for themselves. So it's a difficult time, but it's also a time where individuals have learned how to flourish as well. So, yeah.
Thank you, Barbara. You are so right. The work-life balance, and then becoming an instant teacher. People were losing it. I'm a guidance counselor, so I know what you was going through. And I promise we have mercy on parents. We certainly do, but we were thankful that parents had mercy on us. They couldn't wait for school to go back. They were like, please, in person, I can't take it anymore. And I was just like, welcome, right? And unlike teachers where they have, a classroom of 20, whatever their number is, no more than 32 children, I am the school counselor for my entire school. I had 900 kids, okay?
Oof.
One me and 900 children. And we didn't have a lot of remote students, I'll be honest. We created an in-person 5-day for our students with special support. We also had hybrid learning that was available, and we also had fully remote. So we did the Pod A, the Pod B, the in-person 5 days, and then the fully remote. And I got to tell you, we did senior day last Friday for our 5th graders because they're going through. They're online. They're miserable. They're tired of being in the house. They missed their last year at school, and they're missing out. We didn't do our our overnight trip, so we have depression that is happening with our young kids as well from the pandemic, and especially girls. We also see that because if you've been in the house for such a long time, when you do come outside in person, and now that it's warm, right? We went in, we were in coats. We're now outdoors and we're in shorts, and just the girls have developed, and they are like not expecting these responses they're getting from the boys. The boys have gotten taller, voices have gotten deeper. But just watching these interactions between students, now it's going to be a whole nother type of counseling I have to provide for them, and some kids did not have the ability to go be in spaces with other people. Some families didn't have families here. So we think about families who felt alone in this country or in this state because their families live so far and we couldn't travel. There's no, they're like the mental health issues and stress and the rates of depression have increased. So thank you, God. Thank you so much for providing your assistance. And I'm wishing you a wonderful, I know you can't wait. I'm going to ask the same question to Liz.
Yeah, thank you. So everything that everyone has said really resonates with me. I feel really fortunate that personally I haven't lost any loved ones during the pandemic. So I just, count that as a blessing. It has made the work that I do a lot harder. I think like all of the other panelists probably, have had to go remote. And in my work, working around the country, I'm used to traveling and working in places like Washington State or Wisconsin or Philadelphia. And I just can't do that anymore. And it makes it hard to build relationships and trust when you're just looking at someone through a screen. It has also made the work that we do at Vera much more urgent. We know that people who are in jails and prisons during the pandemic are at such great risk. They can't socially distance. They often aren't given masks or other PPE. The the risk that an outbreak will happen is really high, and so I worry about that a lot. And I think women are at particular risk and have been during the pandemic. Women who are incarcerated. Jails and prisons are taking measures to isolate people to try to make sure there isn't an outbreak, but then people are isolated and they're alone, and family visitation has been cut off. So particularly for women, most women in jails, about 80% are mothers, and most of them are single parenting. About a third of women in jail have experienced serious mental illness and substance use disorders. And so thinking about what they are experiencing and what they are suffering inside of these jails and prisons during the pandemic is just really frightening and devastating. And I think there's been less attention on women throughout the pandemic. There hasn't been as much reporting. We don't know as much about what's been happening for women on the inside. And so that's also concerning. So yeah, I'll stop there.
Thank you, Liz, for bringing up isolation. I think sometimes we believe that mental health disorders always come from something genetic or it's in our DNA, right? Stress-induced issues in life can cause a mental disorder like anxiety, like general anxiety and depression, depressive episodes, mood disorders. And we're seeing a high rate of that also. If we just look at our women who had to give birth alone through this pandemic, the stress of knowing that to carry your child to full term, thinking you're going to have this wonderful experience with your partner or family members, and then they were forced to they had to do it by themselves. So much PTSD or so many postpartum depressive issues have come out of that. So that isolation is a big, big problem. And I get the outbreak is an issue, but like I don't know how to manage it. Like I don't have the answer for that, but I definitely know when folks begin to reintegrate back into society, we're gonna have a problem. And we know that with children just going back to school who don't have this type of this layer added yet, but we have kids with incarcerated parents as well, whose parents will come home. And that will be an issue for us as well. So thank you for highlighting that. And 80% are mothers. That bothers me immensely.
Yeah. And Diane, you're also raising the point that like it's the family too. Like there's just been such a lack of transparency among these prisons and jails, lack of communication. Families just really don't know what's going on. And so it's the entire family is suffering while their loved one is incarcerated.
Yeah. Thank you, Liz. Thank you. Wanda, share with us.
Okay, so for me, I happened to work the whole pandemic. And I felt that for me, it was great because in order to work with somebody, when you're doing social work, you need that interaction, right? A lot of them can't afford to have a phone. A lot of them don't have a laptop where you can do telehealth services. So for me, it was more of getting a reflection on me and getting settled, right? I too was incarcerated. I am a domestic violence survivor, but I like to call myself an empowered woman after my experience. Okay. I had a hard time coming home. They wouldn't hire me because I have a violent crime of my case. When I went to court, this was the craziest part. When I went to court, I had a female judge, and there was pictures showing of black eyes and hospital visits and everything. And when I got sentenced, she didn't take any of that into consideration. She took into consideration that I took matters into my own hands, and because there is no self-defense law in New York City or New York State, she hit me hard. So when I started working, I decided to go back to school because I started getting very depressed because I couldn't get hired. They kept turning me down every time a background check came. I got hired. That meant I met the qualifications, but because of my background, they were rescinding their decisions. So I started talking about it, and got involved with some great people, all women, and who introduced me to this organization called College Community Fellowship, who assisted me in getting back to college. So last year, June 2020, I graduated with my master's. I'm going back to school to get my doctorate. At the same token, I was working with with my population, and I had a lot of women who were in domestic violence situations who did not want to come out of it. They would come to me with black eyes, bloody lips, and all I can provide them was with a safe plan. Let's do this. Make sure that you keep your IDs in a safe place, so if you need to run out, you can run out. Um, and I provided them with resources that Thomas should be putting up. There was a whole bunch, plus I have a bunch more, um, because these women become vulnerable. There's a stigma on women who have been in a domestic violence situation, like why you didn't leave, not knowing what comes behind it. Like you feel you can change the person, financial, um, not wanting to leave what you comfortable with, right? And I mean the home, not the beatings, the home, right? Having your children, not uprooting your children to go to a place where there's so many rules, because when you're in domestic violence shelter, you have to follow their rules and guidelines. And a lot of women didn't want to do that. So it was kind of frustrating, because you want to help and then you have the resources, and then they're not ready, and it's always in their time. As long as you provide them with the information and the guidance, that they have someone that's not going to judge them. I've been there, so I'm never going to judge them. I'm going to give them the support. I'm going to give them information. I'm going to give them education. I'm going to make sure that they go to the doctors, right? Because sometimes they don't go, because they don't want them to see the bruises. They're afraid that if the doctor sees their bruises, they're afraid that they think the children are being abused as well. And then ACS is called. So there's a lot that a lot of women go through when they're in a situation like that, right? Especially with the pandemic, where a lot of people were just staying at home. There was food insecurity. There was, they didn't have money. The jobs, a lot of women are the caregivers, even though they have a husband at home, they're the caregivers. So all of that combined was a really, really stressful moment for me. So I learned to self-care, right? Because it comes back with me. It comes back to everything that I've been through. The times that I hit my bruises, the times when my kids was like, "Mom, why your eye looks like you have a black eye?" "Oh no, I hit myself with the door." Always lying, always making excuses, right? So all of that, when I'm dealing with that, sometimes come up. So I have to learn how to self-care, step back and say, "Hold up. It's not about you right now. It's about them, and you have to work with them and make sure that they're okay, and work with your stuff later on, right?" So that's what I learned. And the COVID, again, it worked wonders for me too, because I finished my master's. I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna do this, right? I finished my master's and I finished well. And so that to me was awesome. And then I wanted to go straight to my PhD, but I said, "Oh, I gotta make some money, right? I gotta make some money." So, I said, let me take this time just to make a little bit of money and then go back to school.
Thank you, Wanda, and congrats on the masters. Woo, 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 woo. All these ladies is educated, y'all. No obstacles held them back. So I need everybody to be inspired. I am so proud and happy for you. Thank you for educating us on that there is no self-defense law in New York State or New York City. Unacceptable, insane. So I don't know who we contact about this, um, but I am on it. Just know, right? I'm not just a healthcare advocate. I'm an advocate. So when there's something affecting all of the people that could affect my children, your children's children, my grandchildren, like I do not understand that. I'm not going to speak disparagingly of it because I don't know what is or why there isn't a law. I don't know if anybody here knows why that doesn't exist, but it seems to me if I'm taking a beating often, complaining all the time, and all you give me is a piece of paper to protect myself. I mean, at what point am I going to continue to do that? I mean, so I have parents who have restraining orders, orders of protection, and you know, people still do what they want to do. So if someone can mute because it's loud, you're loud. If we could, if that piece of paper does not go a very long way. It just does not. And so I find myself often having to read through orders of protection and custody orders. Who's supposed to get the kid Wednesday through, Sunday, and then bring them back and then drop them off. Like that's very stressful, even for children, to have to maneuver, be dropped off in front of the precinct, and then meet the other parents. Sometimes they don't show up. I mean, that's a form of abuse too. We always think of abuse as something that's always physical, but it certainly isn't. And so as we just extend some grace to people who are witnessing that, who are going through that, and for sure, I think we're going to be putting some resources in the chat, or so people could see if you are experiencing that. I mean, yes, I counsel tons of students who are in compromised positions, and just like you, Wanda, I wasn't able to provide that same level of confidence for them because they're in the room with the people who are probably abusing them. And so because I can't, Zoom cameras are off. Folks are that's intentional, when everybody doesn't have their camera on in the room, especially for elementary school. So we definitely do a lot of social emotional development and work around helping families transition through that period. So thank you for bringing all of that to our attention. But I'm going to get on this law. We're going to work together. This coalition right here was not created for naught. So I'm calling everybody. I got your emails. And lastly, Charlene, you had shared so much in the beginning. Do you have anything else you'd like to add to this conversation regarding the pandemic and its effect?
So yeah, sure. I would like to piggyback off Wanda Velez. In response to her transitioning from prison and back into society and having a hard time obtaining employment. Currently, Exodus Transitional Community is on the Clean Slate New York campaign, fighting for new law that will automatically clear a New Yorker's criminal record once they become eligible. The collateral damage of a criminal conviction can be wide-ranging and enduring, permanently barring many individuals from basic opportunities like employment and housing. Clean Slate New York is about strengthening our communities by ensuring that New Yorkers are not punished beyond their sentences and can be full and fair participants in economic civic life. We are also on working with a housing campaign that, because it's been very difficult for people that have been formerly incarcerated to acquire housing these days. We work closely with individuals and trying to, get brokers and work with different organizations and people to accept individuals with these criminal backgrounds. That we know that it's complicated, but I just want to uplift Exodus because God bless the organization that I work for, because when there's a will, there's a way, and if I don't have the answer, my colleague has the answer, or someone in a different department has the answer. And we're only expanding, during this pandemic, I worked throughout the whole pandemic. This was amazing to me because not one time did I even contract the antibody for COVID. And I work on 3rd Avenue in East Harlem in between 124th Street and 123rd. And that area is congested with homelessness. we served the community when there was no food, and obviously the economy was impacted by this throughout this pandemic. We somehow, my organization connected with other people who volunteered and donated pounds and pounds and hundreds and pounds of food, and we served the community. We served the NYCHA. We were able to do coat drives for the youth department. We provided clothes. Currently we're raising soap to give back to Bedford Correctional facility, Bedford Hills Correctional Facility in Taconic, for the women that are incarcerated, because a bar of soap goes a long way with these people, with people that are inside the prison. It's just, like I said before, when there's a will, there's a way, and me working and providing the services that I'm providing, I come across all types of cases, and not for nothing, for me, I feel that domestic violence is a main concern, because domestic violence is unaddressed. Domestic violence has been ignored. The laws just are ridiculous. The NYPD are supposed to protect and serve. Like, who do you turn to when you call the cops and say that you've been brutally beating, and all they do is give you an order of protection or arrest an individual, and they come back out, and it happens again and then again and again until there's a story that someone is dead, and then that's when it makes headline news, and that's when people want to convict someone for 20 to life. Domestic violence, needs to be addressed, and maybe we can come together as women that have been impacted by these circumstances and fight for these rights. Like right now, Exodus is constantly joining campaigns and expanding ideas to provide services to our underrepresented community, our Black and brown people that have been impacted by these circumstances. If we don't speak up, we're not going to make the difference. All we have to do is continue to speak up. Wanda, I commend you for, rising from those circumstances and being able to give back throughout your own experience. That makes a difference with the individuals that we're working with. Like myself, people come into my office and they look at me and they think I'm like this this person that didn't go to prison. And when I open my mouth and I start speaking the truth, because the truth is where I am, I'm nothing but the truth, And when I speak and I see people's face and the reaction and the instant connection, it's the most amazing feeling in the world for me, because I know then I have their attention. And as long as these people, I think, is knowing that someone else walked the same shoes as them, and we weathered the storm basically, and now here we are, metaphorically speaking, dancing in the rain. But I'm here to support you. I'm here to serve you. I'm here to understand you, and I'm gonna have your back, And I went through it. I've been there. I've done that, and here I am now, and let's do it together. I just want to use my colleague who is my supervisor now. His criminal record said deceased. He was supposed to die in prison, and we spoke about this. We speak about this constantly, but this individual is now the director of the New York County Reentry Task Force. Everyone, 90% of Exodus employees have been impacted by the criminal justice system. I want to give thanks to the owner for giving us an opportunity to have a place to come and be able to seek employment. And during the pandemic, he hired, I think right now we have like over 150 employees. We only had about 80. During the pandemic, we hired over 100 case managers, people that were coming home from prison. All you needed to have is passion. And from there, the doors opened up, and within the community, we offer job development, and we also have we connect individuals with employment. So we have a workforce, and we were able to connect with different temp agencies, and some, of course, they had to try more than once to continue working. And I just don't recall no one not ever have, I don't recall not having anybody that we serve that was looking for work and not being able to connect them with a job, So sometimes there's resources out there. It's just that people are not aware, and it's our job. Like what we do at Exodus is we reach out and we connect with people and let them know, listen, this is what we do, this is who we serve. Please come join us. And we just continue to keep feeding people and teaching them and leading the way. And if you don't know, you don't know that you have an opportunity, that the opportunity is available, you're not going to go for it. So I guess I'm just happy to say that the pandemic really has worked wonders for me and just a lot of the people that I see in general, and even the homeless people that live out here in the streets on 3rd Avenue, Lexington, 125th Street. We literally make it our priority to take food to these individuals and serve them in the street. We have events, we give water, we raffles, school supplies, it's just when there's a will, there's a way. I think the COVID-19 was a blessing. And not one time that I even contracted antibodies. So until today, I've tested negative. I'm vaccinated, and that's the grace of God. That's the grace of God. That's all I wanted to add.
Right, Charlene. I mean, because you preaching. I'm just here. Like, you let me know when you want to moderate, because thank you.
Can I share something else?
Yes, go ahead, Wanda.
So I am in a different headspace right now, because because when I see the young girls, because I also see young girls, right? And I'm trying to work something out where I can prevent them from going to prison. That's my whole goal, right? So, because when I was in prison, I worked on domestic violence, where my first couple of years working in domestic violence program, it was like older women, right? After maybe 3 years, I started seeing younger girls, right? Younger. And when they would tell their stories, their narratives, right? It was always, I see my mother get abused and I refuse to let anybody abuse me. Or, I had to defend myself because I didn't have anybody to defend, or I had to go steal and, I just happened that I hurt somebody. So when I remember those stories and I'm talking to my younger population, I want to inform them of this. I want to provide them with so much information, which again, I have a bunch of resources that I provide them because everybody has different needs. And according to their needs is how I send them. Here's this resource, and here's it, because I have transgender, I have binary, I have people who've been young girls who've been abused, I have young girls who witness abuse, their mothers are abused. So everybody's a different entity. So I try to provide them with resources that fit their needs, so that way they won't have to end up in a place where I ended up, right? In a prison in Bedford Hills, where I have, where I'm stripped from everything that was me, right? So I that's my headspace, working with them so they won't get there.
Well, thank you, Wanda, because that's the next question before I think we're going to open it up to see if any of our guests have a question. But I always need, that's the therapist in me, I need to end on a high note. And always, we gave resources. I hope everyone can see them, because we didn't want to walk away with not having solutions or resources for our guests who joined us tonight. So we want to make sure that we have contact information for all of these amazing agencies that are doing work in our community, so people can connect with you. That's going to be after you do this. What can you tell young girls that they can use as a footstool to be inspired, to make sure that they know how to value themselves so they don't end up in this pipeline to prison that does begin in our educational system? Let's be very clear. And to also, what would you have told your younger self, right? Nobody thought I know Shannon didn't think she was going to be a mom, running a business and having children, run around the house, being remote in a pandemic, doing an MBA. So what could we tell our girls, and what would you have told your younger selves? Those of you who who experienced incarceration, right? What would you have told your younger self, and what can you offer to some young girls who might be listening, or some moms who are looking for that conversation to have with their children? I wanted to let you know, Charlene, while you guys ponder about upon that clean slate. My friend Zackie Smith, I don't know if you know him. He was an intern with the Next 100, but he is clean slate. This guy went and he advocates like nobody's business, but he's been before Congress. He's been before all of our legislative officials, and he did like this whole art project around Brooklyn and all the 5 boroughs where they put up a mural, to talk about let's eradicate these. I think he said it's something like 44,000 laws that still exist that don't allow formerly incarcerated individuals to reintegrate back into society and have the same rights as everyone else. So that is good stuff with clean slate. So I will start with Liz.
Oh, that's such a hard question. And it's so hard to follow just so much inspiration from my fellow panelists.
Oh, please.
But
If you did not give us the numbers, the impact would, you understand? Like sometimes people just don't get it until they hear the percentage of our people that are being affected. And so we thank you for crunching those numbers and representing us, right? People don't have money to go to trial. They don't have it. That's why half of them have the sentences that they get, and then they end up staying there when it's not warranted. So don't you dare feel like that.
So I actually want to lift up, I recently read a quote from Monique Morris, who a lot of you probably know of her work. She's the author of Push Out and now has a documentary. She works in the space of education, and she focuses a lot on Black girls and how they are treated in our education system, how they are pushed out, how they are criminalized, sexualized, adultified, just wronged in so many ways. And she, in an interview, talked about how Black girls are sacred and should be treated as sacred, and how that which is sacred isn't disposable. And that I really resonated with me. So I would say to young girls that you are sacred and you are not disposable, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
I love that. That is going to be our little mantra. I run a little girls group, 4th and 5th grade girls, a sister circle. We're in our 12th year. We are meeting in person for the first time on Saturday. And this is our new lesson. Thank you, Liz. Thanks.
You're welcome.
All right, Barbara.
One of the things that I would like to have the opportunity to tell them is that they're valuable, that they need to try and make wise choices, stay in school, gain as much education as they can, and hang around positive, not only young people their age, but around positive women, people that they can look up to as a mentor. People that are doing positive things that they would like to do, because we learn and are nurtured by our environment. And if we don't have it within our environment, then we must outreach. For me, it was my grandmother who was that nurturer for me, that mentor for me, who showed me the way. And I would love for every young person to have someone like that in their lives. I love hearing the fact that you have a circle of young girls that you mentor, because that is absolutely going to make a major difference in their lives. I was once told growing up that individuals who survive because they had one significant person in their lives. They were resilient because of that one individual, irregardless to what they're going through. And we hear success stories all the time of individuals who made it through some of the worst conditions that we can possibly think of. But they made it because they had one person in their lives that breathed into them that they were valuable. and that they deserved and could do more than what their environment was offering them. So yes, most definitely. I would just want them to be resilient, bounce back from whatever you go through. Being a product of the criminal justice system myself, actually kudos to Exodus, because that's where I got my first job from. I can vouch for everything that Charlene just mentioned, because they were doing it way back when I first came home, which was almost 12, 13 years ago. So yes, and we need organizations around in our community where our children live that are doing positive things, whether it's a re-entry program, a daycare center, a youth group, a PAL, which they just seem to have disappeared in our communities, you know, a Boys and Girls Club, somewhere where they're safe, where they have people around them that care about them, people that are going to interject positive things into their lives, and individuals who truly care about them and that look like them. So one positive story that I heard on the news the other day, a young boy, I believe he's 8 years old now. He's a world chess champion, world, not just the Bronx or you know, the world. And his situation was his parents left, I believe it was Nigeria, to come to the United States because they were being persecuted because they were Christians. And when they came to the United States, they stayed in a shelter. He had some individuals around him that spoke into his life. They taught him how to play chess in a shelter. And now he's a world champion. So out of some of the worst conditions that we go through, especially for those who have gone through the criminal justice system, some of the worst conditions that you can go through, we can rise up and rise above it. And that's what I would want for our young people. So many of them have potential. They just need the opportunity and they need somebody to nurture them.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Barbara. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wow, yes, valuable. Make wise choices, stay in school, find some positive women to connect to. And if it's not within your circle, look externally. Like, yes, that is all like good stuff. We do have a question where we're gonna ask a guest to unmute to ask a really good question to you guys. So I want you guys to finish up and then we'll ask his question before we jump off. I'm gonna go to Shannon now.
Thank you, Diane. So in that question, what can we do to somehow help girls not get into the school to prison pipeline or just the prison pipeline? And it makes me think back to what Charlene said earlier when she says, I think you were breaking a generational curse and going through therapy with your 7-year-old. And I think too often we put the onus on the people who are like hurt and experiencing trauma from a lot of like systemic oppression and all that. And I want to start with the parents. So I have my 4-year-old who is a chocolate skin girl here in America, and I'm doing my very best to pour into her as much as I can. If we know that we have certain things that are, blind spots or things that are harming us, we don't realize sometimes we pass those off to our own kid. So therapy, really honing into like actually making yourself better so you can imprint that on your child. One thing for me is I was on another conversation recently where someone's like, what can you do to prevent yourself from being arrested? And I was like, I think that puts the onus on this person to, figure out how to go about and navigate policing and systemic racism and all that. And that's a little unfair. But I think similar to what Barbara and Wanda expressed, I would say be your own best friend. And think about like as much as you can, we're in your own, whatever, there's certain things that you can allow. You can allow to give yourselves options. So be invested in your own education, be your own best friend. And when you think about my best friend, she wants the best for me. She's actually on this call right now. She wants the best for me. She's rooting for me. If I'm going to make a decision, she's going to help me make the best decision. So when you think like your own best friend, to the best of your ability, you can avoid certain situations that can lead you down the wrong road, because one split decision can send you there. And I think also, as Wanda shared her story, being incarcerated is sometimes never on your own cognition, or you sometimes you cannot ignore it. There's certain laws are in place that just don't support women. And so some of these things are like moot topics. It's literally, you know, how you can prevent incarceration for other women is to go out there and lobby, call your council members, speak to those who are elected officials and say this process or this law that's in effect right now doesn't make any sense, and it's a disservice to all of our women. And our women make up so much percent of our GDP, our household, and there's, like they say, women are the backbone of society, right? And so there's so much work that we already do, but we need allies. We need men. We need everyone else to be on board to understand our power. But before they can understand our power, we have to know our own power, and we have to be our own best friend.
Yeah, dropping some nuggets tonight. I feel like we got you can snap with me. Yes. Oh my gosh, my gosh. Thank you so much for that. Oh God, I have so much to say, but I know we have a little bit of time. Thomas told us this would happen, right? I told you I sent you 5 questions and we got through 2. Oh my God, 2.5. Okay. All right. I'm gonna reserve my comment. Okay. Go ahead, Charlene. Charlene, are you frozen? Or am I frozen? Am I frozen? No, I'm not frozen. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go to Wanda until Charlene handles her tech issues. Go ahead, Wanda.
Hi. So I tell my girls that they are smart, important, and that they matter. You know, I tell them education. I use me as an example. I'm a older, mature woman. And I tell them, I said, don't think that when I went to school it was easy, right? When I decided to go back to school, I decided that I was going to sit in the front, and when I didn't understand something, I was going to raise my hand. I didn't care who. They're like, oh, if they knew, that's fine. This is what I'm going to do. And you know what? It worked for me. So if it works for me, you guys can do it. There's tutors. You know, I refer them to tutors if they need to work on math or reading or writing, whatever they need. You know, I tell them, but I tell them, I said, they're worth it. They have to believe it. And it takes time. I tell them, I work with some where I tell them to get a mirror and look at the mirror and tell themselves that today they are wonderful, they are smart, and they can do whatever they want. And I want them to do this every day until they start believing it and they don't need that mirror anymore. You understand? Because this provides them with self-esteem. It lets them know that I let them know they can call me, you know. I have a work phone, they can call me, I don't care, you know, they need to vent, that they have somebody there that listens to them, to support them and guide them. And that's what I tell them.
Thank you, Wanda. I think just watching you this evening has already inspired adult women. You know, all of you have already inspired adult women. And you're right. Shannon just said, like, it begins with parents and what we pour into our children and how they see themselves, and how you see yourself is how your child sees themselves, right? So we have to be careful of the modeling that we're doing and get the help that we need when we need the help, because it really all starts there about healing, you know, within ourselves. Okay, again, tag, I'm not ready to go. All right, Charlene.
Hello. Hello, how are you?
Can you hear me, Charlene?
Yes, I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yes, so we have 2 questions from the chat that we need to get to before, hopefully they don't kick us off. So, but go ahead.
So what I want to say in regards to uplifting our young women, the first thing that I did, you know, or I do, you know, it comes to mind naturally, It's just to let them know that they're not alone, and reminding them of their worth. I work with my daughter very closely because she was exposed to trauma and, the incarceration system, having to come and see me. And, she was 2 when I left. And unfortunately, I tried to manipulate her by saying I'm in school. Until one day she said, I don't want to go to school. School has all these bars, like this. I don't like this. And that was a big turning point for me. And I just sat her down and spoke to her, and I was real with her. And upon my release from prison, even in there, she would come and I see me graduate, and she's seen all these great things. But that's different, because when I came home and we reunited, and just throughout our journey, and her living with me and her seeing me go to school and pursue my education and get up, go to work, drop her off, wake up in the morning, pick her up, we get dressed, leave her at daycare so she can go to school, go to work, go back, pick her up, come home, get on my laptop, go to school, cook, clean. She sees that. So she's feeding off of that. She's learning to look up to that. And, not only that, the youth that I work with as well, I share this with them, and they see it as well. And, they start to look up to that and get inspired, in some magical way. I just want to add that we have youth department at Exodus. We have like a variety of different services at Exodus for the youth. We specifically target trauma-informed, mental health, substance abuse. We have an alternative to incarceration program at Exodus. All these resources that the organization I work for provides, I actually incorporate that with me being a mom. And this is how I help my daughter. This is, and I'm just going to give you guys a big treat tonight. Come here. She's been sitting here the whole time, joining in on the call. And she's joined in on every call. She's been to every prison, jail, courts, Exodus. This little girl knows a lot. And she just looks up to me and says, Mommy, I want to be just like you. I said, no, you're going to be greater than me. And I tell the kids in my youth department, they're like, oh my God, I want to be just like you, Miss Charlene. You're so fly, you this, you that. I said, no, you're going to be greater than me. And even though I'm upstairs in the reentry task force, I still work closely with my youth, because that's my passion, because I get it. This is where I came from. And all I needed was someone like myself to help me and give me hope. And if nothing more, just staying on top of these children and these young girls and boys too, because they're humans. It's not just the young girls, it's the young boys, and just people in general. They need compassion. They need assistance and consistency, and someone that's gonna just lead them in the right direction. And honestly speaking, not give up on them. Even if they give up on themselves, cannot give up on these individuals. It makes a big difference.
You guys are so dope. Let me tell y'all, first of all, we got 6 questions in the chat. That's first of all. But Miss Rebecca, I don't know if you know there's questions in Q&A too.
I do, thank you.
Okay, okay. And we can go to 8:15. Because I really want you guys to hear the questions. I don't know if you can see them, but I really want the folks to be able to have an interactive moment and ask their questions themselves. Before we do that, Charlene, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for making it safe for your daughter to know your story. The biggest cultural issue we all have in every ethnicity, I don't care what you are, whether you're Native American, East Indian, Black American, Caribbean, Latina, it doesn't matter. We never share these types of stories, even when it comes to illnesses, right? No one wants to talk about grandma had cancer. So how do I know to go get pre-screened, right? That it could be preventative for me. How do I not know what my mom went through so that I can now look to her for guidance, so that I can not make whatever, though, whether they were mistakes, or know my rights. Now I can know what I'm supposed to do. Nobody wants to talk about it. So I am so proud of you. I am just meeting you. That's first of all. I just met these amazing, phenomenal ladies, y'all. And I named them the phenomenal women, by the way. I don't know if they know that. And I just thank you for that. Because as an educator, I mean, people will keep this a secret. We will have children falling asleep in class because they did a visit the night before, and the family will just blame it on the child, saying, no, they were up watching TV all night. And once, I'm big on having trust with my family so that they can be vulnerable enough to share so I can connect them to resources. We just want to help. So I am, and they know I'm a stickler for don't be judgmental because we all have some stuff. Everybody has some stuff. Every family's working through some stuff. It might not be the same stuff, but you don't dare judge another person's journey. And so I definitely am so grateful for all of you who just were unashamed and just were so gracious in sharing how you made it. And you are such inspirations, and you are valuable, and you are sacred, as Liz said, and you are indisposable. Thank you very much. So I just want to say thank you for giving me the time to actually moderate and meet you and giving you the floor. And so I just, yeah, I don't want to cry. So yes, thank you for all the work you do for saving our girls. And that meant so much to me that you would take the time to answer that question. Okay. I just wanted to say one thing to young girls. If you are listening, we did talk about this briefly. My women who experienced domestic violence, where it starts at this elementary school age, where we say that boys are hitting girls because they like them. So if there's any mom, woman, or mother listening, I want us to really change the language around that and having our girls understand from very early that it is inappropriate to hit me, to express any kind of feeling, right? So even if you're angry, even if you're playing, it's not okay. We need to teach them how to use their words. And when somebody does that, I find that parents don't teach the response to that. So if you are being hit and the response is that I need for you to please let them know that is nothing I want you to do, and they need to tell an adult. So we start teaching them how to respond to those things early, whether they're being touched inappropriately, whether they're being hit, called names, bullying, whatever it is. Let's start teaching them the response to all of it. It's not enough to tell them, don't let anybody touch you here. Well, what do I do when that does happen? Don't let anybody hit you, call you names. Well, what do I do when that does happen? And I'm not saying that all of those things will happen, but at least one out of the three I named is going to happen if your child matriculates any type of educational system where they're socializing with others who don't maybe have the same values as you do. So just really think hard around how you want to have that conversation, but whatever you do, have that conversation. All right. So now, Rebecca, it's on you.
Great. I have seen some beautiful questions. We're not going to show your video, but I will call your name and allow you to speak. So we'll start with Thomas Little. Thomas, are you able to ask your question directly? Otherwise, I can read it for you.
You can read it.
My granddaughter asked me to ask, how do the children deal with a situation when one of their parents is in prison? I tried speaking about the situation, but she wants to hear the perspective of a mother.
Who wants to take that?
So children, okay, so I had my grandchildren come, not my children because they were older. One of my grandsons did not want to keep coming because he was angry. He didn't know how to deal with it. He dealt with it when I came home. We spoke about it because it's not the same when you keep on in prison in the visit and talk about their feelings. It's not that type of thing where you can really get deep with it. The younger one didn't really understand until I came home. We went to the machine and he was giving me money so I can buy something from the machine. And I told him that I couldn't touch the money. And he was like, why, Grandma? Why? And I said, because Grandma's on timeout. So children know because of the fence, the gate, the guards, what you can do. Like if you can't cross over, the guards are coming, you can't be too close, you can't do that. So everybody deals with it differently. Some close up and some get angry, and some will be boisterous about it and have an understanding. My oldest son, for a long time, didn't understand, and every time he came to the visit, he would cry and he would blame himself because he felt like he should have known the signs, right? And it took a minute and a lot of working together and communicating for us to come to some common ground. So more to say, with my oldest, it was more blaming himself. He took the blame.
Thank you so much for that. Barbara, do you have any stories you could share regarding this issue?
Yes. My children, the younger three, would come on visits, and my husband would bring them up to visit me. And what he would try to do is make the trips a fun trip, because we all know the experience of the kids they come through, and they sort of get treated the same way the adults do. You have some officers that are really nice who will, make a game of the wanding the children down to make sure they have no type of metal device on them, or, any type of contraband or anything like that. And then you have some that will talk to them and kind of be personable to make the experience less traumatic, right? Each time they coming up. I was blessed in that my children participated in a lot of the parenting programs by way of Bedford, as well as Bayview Correctional Facility. So they had the opportunity to sort of meet with me for visits without the confinement of the actual visiting room. So they had that visiting room experience as well as the children's room experience. In the children's room, we were free to touch, to hug, to, sit on my lap, to prepare a food, a meal in the microwave, stuff like that. Whereas, a regular visit, you're in the room with everyone else, and then you're under the guidelines of the officers, and no touching, and no, not too much moving around and that sort of stuff. They always knew where I was. There wasn't stories like mommy's at college or away at school. I would say be truthful with children, because most of them understand the difference between something that is a normal situation and something that seems different or odd. So just like Wanda mentioned, her grandson or son was aware of the fact that, he gave her the money to go to the machine, and the fact that she couldn't go, that told him something. Or someone else, telling their children that they're away at school, but this school has bars and stuff like that most schools don't have. So I think being honest with your children, trying to make each visit the best experience that you can, try to talk to them, communicate, let them know what's going on around them during these visits, just to make them aware of the fact that this is, you're visiting mom in a place that's not normal, and a place that she never wants you to be in. And I'm here, there's nothing that I can do about it because I'm here, but I can make the experience a pleasant one as much as I can while you're there. And always pour on the love. I love you, you're special. We're going to see each other again soon, and things will be different, when I'm home. So giving them hope to make it through that experience is real important, and letting them know constantly that you love them.
Thank you so much, ladies, for those words of advice. And thank you for the question. I do want to acknowledge we had the Honorable Jacqueline Witherspoon visiting with us, but she had to go. And she did leave an amazing comment for you guys. She said, "Thank you all. I will stay in touch with Thomas and Rebecca. I wish you women would run for public office. If law allows, you are what we all need." Signed, the Honorable Jackie Witherspoon. So guys, you definitely need to consider it. And we need to, again, I said the coalition is going to begin when we get off this call. So I'm gonna move on right now. My email, I don't play I'm telling y'all, ask anybody who knows me. I mean what I'm saying. So Rebecca, go ahead with our next question.
Alfred, would you like to ask your question directly or should I read it for you?
You can read it for me. Go ahead. You can read it for me. It's all right.
How do you see the trajectory for public health as it relates to domestic violence, specifically abandonment, where men and women are estranged from one another and our families are further broken apart than down?
Wow.
Hello?
Who wants to take that?
Okay, so the question is about the health and domestic violence. Am I, like, I don't understand it. I need a little bit more clarity.
Can you repeat the question, please?
I think the question is sort of, where are we headed? We've got domestic violence and families are broken apart. Where do we go from here?
Oh, okay. So I believe, all right, and this is a work in progress, that with education, women, and education and resources and support and non-judgment, women and men, because men also get abused, right? So we're providing them these services. They're more in tune to get the help and get out of domestic violence situation. I remember, I'm gonna share one little small story. So I have a transgender male who is in a domestic violence situation, and he been to the doctor, and I provided with a lot of services and resources, and he just kept saying, you know, it's gonna change, it's gonna change, it's gonna change. Let's work with him and get him to understand. And because he was so adamant, I said, okay, but it's separate. We can't work. I can't work with you and him together. It has to be a separate entity, right? And I provided, and I needed to understand why when he was angry, he became physical instead of just talking about it. And it's a work in progress, right? People say that abusers can't change. They can. It just takes a lot longer, and a lot of help, and a lot of resources, and a lot of information, and learning how to work through that behavior, because they're so used to lashing out, because this is their way of communication, that sometimes, you know, it's got to be like chipped away. So it's a long process, in my opinion, because it's so hard. And it's something new that people got to learn, right? It's something very new, because not only is not only is the person who's being abused needing assistance, but the person who is abusing is also needing assistance. So that is just a lot of work in progress, but it can be done.
Thank you. Did that answer your question, Alfred? Does anyone else want to contribute? Oh,
Can you hear me?
Yes, now.
Yes.
Okay, excuse me. I'm speaking about abandonment as a form of domestic violence, and how this domestic violence affects the public health, because ultimately the children are the ones who are the recipients of this particular kind of violence. And it creates a loop, because men are separated from women, women are separated from men, and the children are living what they see. That's what they learn. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that loop. And how do you see the trajectory right now, post-COVID, or in the period where we should hopefully reach the point of post-COVID? How do we see that over that period of time where people were home all of the time, and they began to squabble and so forth, and began to inflict violence through abandonment? Like, I'm just going to walk away from the situation and punish you like that. And now we're dealing with a loop. So how do you see the trajectory? You can mute me. You can mute me now. Thank you.
1 second, Wanda. Liz, Can you give any information in terms of numbers of what you saw in terms of reentry or any trials, or have you seen anybody showing up in the way where there was this increase in cases of abandonment, and then now we have folks, moving back in, as Alfred said?
Yeah, I don't know if I can speak to that specifically. I can say that we found in our research for our report that almost 90% of women in jails have experienced sexual violence, and almost 80% have experienced partner violence, and 60% experienced violence by a caregiver when they were children. So, and we've all heard that domestic violence has increased during the pandemic, and we've already talked about that, and how another piece of it is that calls to domestic violence centers have actually decreased during the pandemic because the partner, you're at home with the partner. So accessing resources is that much harder. There's lack of access to shelter. But so what I would say is that for so long, our response to domestic violence has been the criminal legal system. And I think we can probably all agree that that's not working. And Alfred's question actually really hit on the right solution, is that we need to treat it as a public health crisis, and people need healing, including the children who have been exposed to violence between their parents. So I think what we need to be thinking about is how can we offer people solutions that offer healing, as Wanda said, to both those who are causing the harm and those who are being harmed. And that's the way that we will come to better outcomes than the criminal legal system can offer, because it, in so many ways, the system just perpetuates the violence. It's just violence by the state. As we talked about earlier, it creates isolation. It takes away all of your control. And we know that that really impacts people who have experienced trauma, and they are re-traumatized by the system.
Thank you for that question too, Alfred. And you're right in that abandonment. Remember, I was also saying that domestic violence is always seen as this physical thing. And it's not always physical. Yes, indeed, abandonment is a form of abuse, especially if, someone has to become a single parent and family overnight and you were the breadwinner. So let's say the breadwinner walks out. Now, how am I feeding the children? And that becomes another cycle. How am I paying the rent? So that food insecurity, that's home insecurity, everything insecure when you don't have a place to sleep, rest your head. And then there's stress that is induced, which creates health problems and mental health problems. And so you're right, the cycle continues. But I do know that sometimes people have to walk away so that they don't have a physical interaction. We need to hopefully, I hope all of these resources that have been named tonight will be a way for folks to reach out for intervention, prevention, versus waiting until things happen and you get to a point of no return. And that's what we want our community to understand. Even if you're just getting information, doesn't mean you have to have a circumstance to get the information. Like, let's be prepared. So I hope we answered most of your question, but if I were you, I would connect on a larger level with any of these organizations that have been mentioned tonight. I'm sorry, Wanda, I know you wanted to interject. I know that we had a few more questions, so I'm gonna let Rebecca get to the next one.
And I think some of them overlapped, but Tafari, are you able to ask your question? And this may be the last one then.
Okay.
Tafari? All right, I will read his question. Great job, ladies. Shout out to Wanda and Barbara, my sisters from the Circles of Support Advisory Board. How can other women get involved in the struggles that our people face today? Solution-based, of course.
Yeah. Right.
I think other women could get involved just by, I feel that sharing their own life experience and just hands-on, everybody comes from a different walk, whether, no disrespect to anybody there, I'm just gonna say, if you lived in a White House with a picket fence and you were served with a golden spoon or silver spoon versus someone that is poor or came from nothing. And all these experiences can have an impact on individual hands-on. just sharing the experience, sharing, you know, it's motivation for someone, you know, it gives them hope. You know, in my case, you know, the women that I work with, my colleagues, each woman comes from a different type of background, whether they have a PhD and a title, or they came from prison and you know, a convicted felon, murderer, you know, whatever the circumstance is, sharing these experiences and being real with people. And while you conveying this to them, the passion that you put into it can touch someone's life and change someone's life. You know, even me hearing some people here, Shannon Shaw, I commend you, Wanda Velez. God bless you, because you made me realize, even though I know that I was already on my way, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna get there. Like, you know, thank you for setting that example for me, you know, Wanda. Shannon, you know, just so you know, just me listening to you, it made me look up to you more, you know, made me look up to you, you know, it touched me in a certain type of way because I'm going for mine, you know. Miss Jackie, what's her name? Flowers, Jackie.
Weathers,
Tracy.
Miss Weather. You know, by her saying that we should run for office, I have been thinking about something amongst them lines, and just reading that message touched me and made me believe in myself that I can do it.
Yes.
You know, I have the ability to change these laws, but again, that comes from what they just shared, you know? So just being real with individuals is it makes a big difference in someone's life. You know, it can really seriously, someone else's passion and someone else's story can really impact and change someone else's life.
Thank you for that. Do you have anyone else want to chime in before we close out about how women can get involved?
A woman can get involved just by being around whoever's within her circle, whoever's within her reach, right? It could be a child in the home. It could be her job. It could be at school. It could be your neighbors walking up and down the street, just being friendly to individuals, offering a smile, a good morning, you know, how you doing today? It begins that way. And when people know you care, or you show an interest, or you even acknowledge that they exist, because one thing about COVID is that we pass each other now with these masks on, as if people don't even exist.
Yeah.
You know, it's not no greeting anymore. You know, so I go out of my way to say hi, good morning. If I'm walking outside, you know, I'm coming in the building, I hold the door for my neighbors. I say, how y'all doing today? Just to create conversation, because when people know that you care, they will then gravitate towards you. And it allows you to have an opportunity to speak with them and to be that person in their life that they might come to if they need you for some type of service. We don't know. Maybe the neighbor is, you know, going through some things in her home. But knowing that every time she comes out, you say hi to her, that might make the difference. Maybe one day she'll, you know, share with you what she's going through and ask, can you help me? And then we have the resources to provide.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
And then go on and build your own group.
Hello. Because that's what women do, we lead.
Offer free services. You know, join me on Zoom.
I do add one. So I would say civic engagement is not a monolith. And so we all in spaces, we show up with privileges, different talents, and, you know, whatever it is. And to have equitable workplaces, to have equitable worlds, you have to show up with your whole identity and your whole self and your whole privilege. And as a Christian, I grew up thinking, like, learning that if you are a tree, you're going to glorify God with your branches. You're going to wave them. If you have one leg, you're going to shake that one leg to praise God. So for me, it's like whatever your talent is, if whatever your platform is, if you have a social media platform, if you have a voice, if you can sing a song, like whatever talents that you have, to put, you know, send messages out there, to connect with someone, to share resources, use that. And I see the women here are already doing that. We're on this platform speaking this. So if you are listening, if you're one of the 23 participants left back, and you have a platform and you have resources, like what you can do now is say, I just got inspired by these women on this panel to share this with someone and be there for someone. It doesn't take much at all. It really doesn't.
Shannon. Okay. Y'all know I hate to go because we could talk forever. We don't need like a public Zoom to just like check in with each other, because I am the big person that is always like, what we need to do. This is my therapy, right? I'm at work. I'm always like, who counts as the counselor? Right, Wanda, who counts as the counselor? So we're gonna close out. I want to just again thank you, Thomas. I have to say thank you to Dr. Nadia Lopez, who actually referred me to do tonight to do this. And it allowed me to meet some new, beautiful, phenomenal women who are doing amazing things and making impact and creating new imprints and pathways and footprints for our young ladies, women, and girls to come, breaking cycles. Like let me show you. I got 4 pages of notes. This is y'all. This is all y'all. Like, so I'm gonna write them down and memorialize them so you know what you said, because sometimes you don't know the things you say and they will bless you in return. Thank you so much to every organization represented here. The work you're doing is certainly not going unnoted, and these are the organizations we should be writing to folks to give awards and money to, so that they can continue to keep our communities thriving and safe. Because when you bless parents, you bless children if they have them, or you bless families if they have them. And if they don't, they are allowed an opportunity to create one. So please, please, please join any of the organizations that are here. We want to say thank you to JC Flowers and the Circle for
support.
The Circle of Support for giving women a voice tonight. Normally we don't have a panel full of women. The women not discussing just women issues. So thank you, Thomas, for seeing that as important and inviting us. And thank you to every guest who stayed on tonight. We thank you for coming in and listening and asking your questions. And we wish we had more time, but we gotta go. You don't have to go home, but we have to get off this.
Thank you all and good night.
Good
Thank
night.
you. And we
Thank
have each
you.
other's email so we can stay in contact.
Yes.
Farewell.
Yes.
Good night.
Okay. Good
Good
night.
night.
Good
Bye.
night.
Thanks. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye, Wanda.
Bye, Barbara.